Well, what a limp end to the season from Arsenal. They've lost to Nottingham Forest, and we're here to break it down on the Tactical Insight Show. A big thank you to everyone who is joining us for this show, because we know that, listen, let's be real. We know it's a little bit of a chore going through the numbers sometimes, the analysis, and breaking down how Forest beat Arsenal. It's not always I love doing the show with you, but it's not always, what we want to be talking about. But I do think it's important that through the good, the bad, the ugly, we talk about what's happening. We try and just understand what the team are trying to do on the pitch, what Mikel Arteta is trying to do. And today's no different. So a big thank you to everyone who is joining us for this show to break it down. And as always, Graham, you are here and you've done some amazing work as always to talk about this game.
Yeah, thank you, James. A disappointing night, a disappointing result, and a disappointing end of the season for Arsenal. Back-to-back defeats, no goals in our last two games. And ultimately handing Manchester City the Premier League title even before they kicked the ball on Sunday. I think that game on Saturday night showed to me how Arteta has really struggled, I think, adapting to the loss of key players in the system he wants to play. And when the team came out, James, it was clearly a 4-3-3 in shape, but he went with Thomas Partey at right back and Kiwior at left back. Kiwior, who's played all these minutes for Arteta at centre back, was moved out to left. He didn't trust Kieran Tierney, which tells me where in effect Kieran Tierney's future lies at Arsenal. And I think the system when it came out was Partey was playing more the Zinchenko role, and his role I think was to invert from the right. And Kiwior was playing more the white role from the left. Yeah. The problem you had was that the Arsenal team in that first half did not trust Kiwior enough to give him the ball. As a result, we did not progress at all or make any inroads down their left-hand side. Forest, who set up in a 5-4-1 to defend and play counter-attack, play on the break, waiting for Arsenal to give the ball away and then spring into attacking positions. Arsenal were heavily right-sided biased in that first half. With Partey playing at right back, there was no overlapping of Saka. Saka and Odegaard got into some very good positions in the first half, but ultimately we conceded the first goal, and the football after that, we lacked penetration, we couldn't claw it back, and it felt to me almost like the Arsenal players were on the beach on Saturday.
That's what made me so furious, Graham, because I know that we're going to talk numbers and stats and tactics and all that, okay? But first and foremost, you've got to really want it. And I've calmed down now, it's been a few days, but I was furious. And I kind of wondered on the Sunday whether I'd wake up regretting some of my tweets saying that the players, and I said staff, and some people were saying, the staff really? I'm obviously talking coaching staff. I was saying the players and coaching staff and everyone involved in the team's performances during the run-in should be ashamed of the way they've ended the season. And I stand by it, Graham. I'm not going to go back on that because there was an opportunity here to at least push Man City all the way. No one was saying we had a divine right to beat Man City to the title, but you fight all the way and you give it your all. And people will talk about fatigue or mental fatigue and things like that. We've been playing one game a week. It's been all focused. I'm not saying it's not tiring. I'm not saying it's not difficult. And I'm certainly not saying that from a position of I sit by a touchscreen pretending I know what I'm talking about and I've never played the game. But no one can tell me that out there against Forest and that second half against Brighton, the players were saying with the same intensity, same drive and determination to win, they looked like they'd conceded it. Like in their minds, they knew it was gone. And even though the fans are going to feel that way a little bit and can feel that way, the players cannot perform like that.
I think the players in the last 2 weeks have switched off twice in these last two games. I think when Enciso, I'll get butchering his name. But when he scored, the left winger of Brighton scored against us. We went one down in the 51st minute last week at the Emirates. I think the players, felt as though they weren't capable of getting 2 goals to retrieve that game.
No.
And that reflected in the performance in the second half, which Arteta called unacceptable. And I think the same thing happened on Saturday, when Forest took the lead. I think the players then almost like accepted the situation in the game, and just didn't seem to have the intensity, the drive, the determination to actually pull it back, and that's disappointing after the season they've had. I think in away games this season we've dominated play in the first 20 minutes and scored the first goal. Then we'll be able to sit in our shape and dominate teams. I think over the last few weeks, even away from home, we were exceptional at Newcastle. When we've conceded that first goal, I think we've struggled in games. And I think, we've been making errors in games I think teams are scoring above their XG against us now. We're being punished, it seems to me, for every single error we're making. And I think the team lacked the fight on Saturday evening to retrieve it.
I agree. And we're going to go into a lot of criticism of certain players and systems and whatever it is. But I do want to shout out Jorginho and Ben White, who aren't going to get the time they deserve, but I thought they were, especially Ben White, I thought was very good on the day. So I want to just give him credit. But let's go into a load of stats that we need to cover from the match stats. I mean, look, it tells you that Arsenal somewhat might have been unlucky to lose the game, but that's where stats can lie. And this is why I always say, use your eyes first, then use stats to prove the point. Don't let stats make a judgment. Because if you didn't watch that game and then you look to the stats, you go, oh, Arsenal a bit unfortunate to lose this game. I don't think they were.
I don't think too many teams have had 82% possession in games and lost games. I think the most damning stat for me on that graphic is the fact that we had 82% possession and only had 3 shots on target. They had 18% possession and had 2 shots on target. They had half the shots that we had with something like 4 times less possession.
So and a better XG.
Yeah.
It tells you everything.
It tells you everything, and their XG.
It tells you everything about how little we did. The point I was making at the start, James,
was it seems to me that our team's XG, they're outscoring their XG against us now every week.
Yeah.
And they had, so, as you say, look at the XG, look at our XG.
Yeah, it's shocking. Let's talk about the attack stats. Again, everything you'd expect. We had nearly 100 final third entries to their 19. We had 50 nearly deep touches to their 19. They didn't have a single touch in zone 14. We had 30 of them. We had a field tilt of 84% to their 16%. But as we know, we did absolutely nothing with it.
We were toothless in possession, James.
So toothless.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. They tackled us more, 19 to our 8. They had 30 interceptions. They did more of the defending, as you can see, with all those numbers. Pass per defensive actions had 4.4 for us.
Really good.
I guess because it is good. It shows that suggests an intensity. I didn't see an intensity. No. I just think they were really poor in possession.
Yeah.
But we're happy to be as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got it. You nailed it.
Yeah. Let's go to the extra stats now, because there's more. There's more on this that we couldn't even fit in these graphics. Do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, go on, mate.
Arsenal had 82% possession and managed 11 shots. Forest had 6 shots from 18% possession, as you mentioned just now. 759 passes in the game was the third most for Arsenal in a game this season. 343 touches in the final third we had in the game. 30 touches in the penalty area and 0 big chances in the game, which is the 4th time this season Arsenal failed to create a big chance. So for all the talented players we have, there is still a creativity issue when it comes down to, defending a low block. And I know we're always going to now run this narrative comparing us to Man City and what they've got, but the amount of times this season that De Bruyne, Mahrez, Jack Grealish have been able to just get their foot on the ball in wider areas and pick out Haaland, it's a bit direct, but it works for them because they've got the execution, they've got the ability to be really kind of precise. That's the word I'm looking for. Precise when it's congested and tight, and Arsenal don't really have that at the moment.
I think the other point I'd make is that Martinelli was a massive loss on Saturday.
That's true.
What he'd offer us on that left-hand side, his pace, his intensity, I think was a massive loss. I thought Trossard didn't stretch the pitch enough on that left-hand side, and he kept going where he wanted, which didn't help us. I think there's an argument almost, as good as we've been attacking this season, that our attacking players have gone right off the boil at the end of the season.
Yeah,
Gabriel Jesus' form has fallen away the last few weeks. Bukayo Saka, I know we're going to talk about Saka today, the amount of minutes he's played, I think it has started to affect his performances. And I think ultimately, I think we've struggled. We haven't got almost like a plan B when we attack, have we?
No, we don't.
And that I think is, when you're playing against a team like Forest, they were very clever. What they did was they smothered the half spaces. They dealt with us out wide on the right-hand side. And when we crossed it in, we had 16 crosses into the box on Saturday night. None of them met their target. We had no one there who could attack it. Of that style of play you need when you're crossing balls into the box. They've got big centre-halves. Their centre-halves, I thought, were excellent on Saturday night. Yeah,
they were. And what we've got here in the Arsenal shape is trying to understand Arteta's experiment and what he was looking to do. Now, the back four, a lot of people thought it was going to be Xhaka at left back with White at right back and Kiwior Gabriel. Listen, that would have made sense. I'm going to give myself some credit. And as did many others on Twitter that I saw, did actually predict that the back four would be Partey at right back because it didn't make sense for one of Jorginho or Partey to be the 8. He's never used either one of them as an 8, getting forward like that Arteta. So I thought it was more likely to stick with Xhaka. So instead of having Jorginho pull out and then Zinchenko coming in like we have here, it was just a flip where Jorginho came inside more to the left and Partey drifted in field, and then you had your back three in build-up. Now, what Arteta did was essentially maintain the same shape, but there was a total imbalance because what you had was on the right-hand side, your best creator, your most direct player, probably your best player out the back, and probably your most reliable DM. At least he's been playing all season. So by having all four on that side, I think Arsenal felt almost, I think it was subconsciously, they wanted to just keep going via that side. Whereas on this side, you've got Jorginho, who's not been at the club very long. Kiwior making his third or fourth start or whatever. Xhaka, who, as brilliant as he's been, isn't as creative or as mobile as Odegaard. And Trossard, who's not really a natural wing. We're going to talk about that. But I think even though the shape was meant to find a balance that's similar to what we've been doing all season, it just didn't work because so many of our better players in terms of progressors and craftsmanship and all that were on the right-hand side.
I think so. I think one of the secrets that Arsenal have had this season is when you've got balance in your team, you're able to use the left-hand side and the right-hand side to stretch teams, to actually, when you're like playing up down the right-hand side here, and frequently Ben White would normally,
overlap.
Saka won't move there for me.
There you go, I'll move. Yeah, so Saka would come inside
and White would move outside,
yeah.
and Odegaard would come up here, and that's that little sort of like triangle we've got of three players on that right-hand side. Now, what that does is ultimately, it moves the defence across. They sat, if you moved them back there, in like a back five.
Yeah.
So they had like 5 defenders, and they had 4 across the middle.
Yeah.
Right. So they were quite happy to sit in a 5-4-1.
Yeah.
And I think the key for them was Gibbs White getting on the ball in transition and looking to feed in the centre forward. That ultimately is how they got their goal. But what Arsenal would do normally would be they would build up down this right-hand side, and you'd have Martinelli. So Trossard's playing this role. He really needed to stretch the pitch out here, but he was drifting in here a lot in the game. And Jesus was here as well over this side. Jesus in this game I thought was more right-sided first half. And so ultimately, if you look at that, look how unbalanced the team is. And ultimately, because we haven't got Trossard out to stretch the pitch, we can't switch it quickly when we've moved their defence over to the right. And that's what we had. If we'd had Martinelli, we could stretch it quickly and use Martinelli's pace. And I think after a while, Forest got used to the way we were playing and were able to deal with it. I think that we literally spent the whole of the first half trying to build up down that right-hand side. Saka and Odegaard did have some moments in the game without able to sort of like play that penetrative pass. And we didn't have a left-hand side, and I think that cost us in this game.
I completely agree. And actually, we're going to break down the goal a little bit later, so I'm not going to do it now, but I just want to show you the positioning of the players on the goal, because look where Trossard is, Xhaka, Jesus, all very near Odegaard. Again, we're going to break this down and where it went wrong a little later in the show. But you're right, you're used to seeing Martinelli just out there waiting for it. And so Arsenal, there's dominating midfield by having a lot of players in there to get the numbers and get, superiority in that sense. But at the same time, there's a beauty to actually just relaxing a little bit, having more space to play and looking for that out ball. But like I said, we'll talk about this a little bit later. Bukayo Saka, obviously a lot of stuff went through him because he was on the right-hand side, but I think he struggled. I'll give him credit because he's everything that they were just looking for him to try and have the answer. But it's been a topic of conversation online, and we wanted to talk about it here, the amount of minutes that Saka's played this season. He's been overplayed.
He has. If you look at those minutes he's played over 3,250 minutes in the Premier League this season. And I think the secret, the difference between Manchester City and Arsenal, and we talked about this before we did the show this morning, is the fact that Arteta hasn't got players he can trust, who he can put in Saka's position. Manchester City have got 18 players that they trust. They're able to rotate their 4 wide players. I mean, Mahrez plays in the Premier League but can't get a look in the Champions League. But he only come into the team recently, so he's only had like 1,674 minutes. Phil Foden, who's been out of the team recently, he still only had about 1,700 minutes in the Premier League. Jack Grealish, who wasn't part of the team at the start of the season, has now had over 2,000 minutes, like Bernardo Silva. It's almost like Pep's go-to man because he likes the control he brings to the team. But if you look at, in comparison, Man City are able to rotate their wingers. We haven't got somebody in the Arsenal team who Arteta feels confident he can trust to rotate Saka for.
Yeah.
As a result, Saka's performances, because he's been so heavily overused, have dipped in the final end of the season. And if you look at it, I know you're going to make a great point about these other key players here, Salah, Bowen, Iwobi and Kane, who have got experience in those areas. But I think generally, that we've, and I talked to you about this one before when I come up this morning. Arteta's got, in my opinion, 14 players he trusts in that squad. Only 14. And I think that's his strongest 11, plus Tomiyasu, Trossard, and Jorginho. Yeah. Right? These 2 buys in the January window. And Nketiah maybe to a lesser degree. But I think that's all. Yeah. He's shown no trust in the likes of Vieira or Smith Rowe, not giving them minutes when we were winning games. So that tells me that he sees primarily a 14-man squad. As a result, he's been unable to find a solution to rotate Saka. The options would be to play Reece Nelson over on that side. Reece Nelson, who basically I think was unwell on Saturday night from what I'm hearing, so he couldn't play anyway. But he hasn't shown the willingness to sort of like rotate Saka out of the team for Nelson, or even to shift Martinelli over and play Trossard on the left, or even to bring Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira could, I know he's more a central midfielder, but he could play on the right.
Yeah, so, the way Bernardo Silva plays.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. So he doesn't trust players enough, and he doesn't feel as though he can ever rotate Saka out. And I think that's reflected in some of Saka's performances the last few weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And what I've got here with Salah, and Iwobi and Kane is just other players, other forwards that have played 300 plus minutes. I know it's slightly unfair because Iwobi's
3,000 minutes.
Yeah, what did I say?
300.
Oh, sorry. 3,000 more minutes. It's slightly unfair because Iwobi's not always played on the wing. He's played in midfield as well, and Kane's played as a striker. But what I'm trying to say is these are the only 4 players. And actually, the numbers might be slightly wrong, apologies. But anyway, these are the only 4 players that have played near enough or more minutes than Saka this season. But look how old they are. I mean, Salah's 30, Kane is 30, Bowen's 26, Iwobi's maybe 27, 28. These are players who are experienced, are used to it. Saka's still only 21 years old. Yeah. He's really young. He is. And I think Arteta's got to find a solution next year to ensure that he's happy to bring him out. And you listed some solutions there. I think with how well Trossard was playing, there's nothing wrong with playing Jesus out on the right, who has played there all of last season for Man City. Trossard down the middle where he's been brilliant, and Martinelli on the left. I still think you have a very natural balance there. Yeah. So Saka needs help because he struggled. But the reason I think everything was going down his side so much, as well as we've talked about the combinations, and having Odegaard, Partey, White, Saka all on one side, I think a big part is that Trossard coming in field. The reason he does that is because I don't think he's as direct as a Martinelli. I don't think he can do what Martinelli does on the left-hand side. Now, I think Trossard's been fantastic for us as a signing. I've really, really liked him. I think he's a false 9, though. I don't think he's a wide player, not in the way we play with our wide players. They're meant to be very penetrative and quick. They're meant to run in behind. They're meant to get fouled a lot. They're meant to, make things happen. So what I've got here is some of his numbers as a winger that I think are important to what Martinelli and Saka do well, and comparing Trossard's. Now, what you've got here in the brackets is percentile ranking in the Premier League. The closer you are to 99, the higher you rank amongst other wingers in the Premier League. So for take-ons attempted, he ranks really low in the bottom 26% with 2.70. Martinelli and Saka both cracking over 4 take-ons attempted per 90 minutes. That's also important to know that all these numbers are per 90 minutes. Successful take-ons as well. They're better in Martinelli and Saka 1.9 and 1.72 is 1.16. Carries, again, they do better, but there's not that much in it. He is still there. Carries into the penalty area, they're another big one. He's in the 66th percentile, whereas Martinelli and Saka both in the top 10% for wingers that actually carry the ball into the penalty area. And for fouls drawn, again, they're slightly better. Saka in particular, much better than Trossard. But he's not miles off it. So he's not a bad winger. We like him. He's good. But Martinelli and Saka just have a directness that I think is really crucial to our wide play. And I'd be looking to get Jesus wide earlier than I'd be getting Trossard out wide.
Yeah, I think the thing is when we bought him when Jesus was injured.
Yeah.
I know Nketiah had played some minutes, but he was also struggling with injury and form. Trossard came in, and as you said, he played almost like a false 9 or down the middle. He was rotating with Martinelli, and that's where we saw the best of him. When he's been out wide, he hasn't, those numbers reflect, been able to sort of reproduce the same sort of form. So that's a really great point you make. I think also the questions have to be asked though, does Bukayo Saka need somebody to come in? We're talking about we need 4 players, possibly. I know Dan Potts made a great point in his fan camp the weekend. We probably need 5 or 6. I don't think we're going to get that if we're going to spend a lot of money on one player, for example. But do you think that we need a forward and maybe Jesus being the person who could drift out there and do what Saka does?
Well,
I'm just wondering what you think the solution is.
Well,
James.
we're going to do a full video on this, which is going to be looking at what we think the squad needs going forward. We did it last season, is well received, and we'll do it again this year. But at the moment, when I'm looking at who are natural fill-ins for what we have in the squad, I think Tomiyasu and White can do I think White's better going forward, but I think you're looking at really two centre-backs playing at full-back. That's a nice balance there. I think Nelson for Martinelli, I think that's got to be next season. If we keep Nelson, I think that's got to be the solution. If Martinelli doesn't play, it's not about moving Trossard out there or a Smith Rowe. It's going for Nelson, who's more like for like and direct. And I think we need a player like Saka. I think Trossard is more like Jesus in the way he drops in, he combines, he's got that low centre of gravity, that kind of combination play about him. He can create, he can drop into the 10. So that's where I think they're most suited. I don't think Trossard playing as almost a second winger makes much sense, but then at the same time we need a different profile of striker.
Yes.
So there's a lot we need to ensure that while we still have the squad depth to maintain what we've been doing so well, we have different options and plan Bs, as you've mentioned. So it's going to be a very busy summer. Let's talk about the goals. And Martin Odegaard, who I think has had a fantastic season, is going to come with some criticism here, because I thought up before this goal, he was the one most likely to create something. I think his first half, he was okay, very much drifted in second. There were a few nice combinations and moments where it looked like he might have got us in play. But this pass here to Gibbs-White, it's becoming a regular thing for Odegaard. He gives it to Gibbs-White, and Awoniyi goes across Gabriel. Danilo's coming forward. I'm just going to pause it here for a second. Partey actually does start quite far away from Danilo, but he never really recovers to get near him, and that's becoming a running theme that I don't like from Thomas Partey. But it's rolled into Awoniyi, and a Gabriel tackle onto his shin, and it goes beyond. You had some questions about Gabriel and Ramsdale.
I did. I felt Gabriel was in a good position to make the tackle. I don't think, for me, I like my defenders to win duels. It was interesting that Pep said in his interview yesterday that he's revamped that City back line with defenders who he thinks can win their duels. So, and I think, to be fair, Gabriel's been brilliant this season. I'm not going to criticise him too much. I think when he's next to his mate Saliba, he's immense, and they've been a fantastic combination. Gabriel I thought has been excellent over the last few weeks. He made a mistake against West Ham, but apart from that, he's been really good. But in that moment, I thought he would clear him out. When I clear him out, I don't mean take him out. Yeah. I mean, he's going to go in with a real old-fashioned centre-half tackle and just take the ball. He was in a position to do so, and I don't think he goes at it in a convincing way. That's what it looked like to me. As a result of that, we were unlucky, because it sort of like the forward was about to take the shot. He got the tackle in, and then it sort of rebounds onto the Nottingham Forest centre-forward and goes into the net. I have question marks of Aaron Ramsdale, because I think he goes down too early. He goes down like he's going to spread himself and take the ball, James. And I think he has to stand up for a bit longer. And I think he is almost like guessing there what's going to happen. And
and he's got to trust Gabriel to get back. He's got to trust Gabriel. Because Gabriel is getting back. Yeah. When I was watching it, I thought Gabriel's getting back here. Yeah. So
I thought that Gabriel should do better. I thought Ramsdale should do better. But ultimately, it becomes the goal really is the fault of Martin Odegaard, who's now made 3 errors over the last month, I can recall. Southampton at home, when he gave the ball away, led to their second goal. Man City at the start of the second half, he gave the ball away. And obviously, he was making a blind pass. Is that because he's got players in the team who he doesn't trust now? Is it because of he's just rushing things because we're under pressure? He's been brilliant this season. I absolutely love Martin Odegaard. And again, I'm not going to go in too heavy on him. Players make mistakes in games. And we've been punished for every mistake we've made, as I've said over the last few weeks. But he's made 3 mistakes now, including this one you're going to now show against Southampton.
Yeah, this is against Southampton. Again, he's got the ball and he just tries to play it across. And El Yunusi cuts it out. And, we've all seen the rest. We don't need to dwell on it. Again, I had questions about Holding's positioning and all that and other players in this. But he's given the ball away there. They've scored. And then against Man City as well, Odegaard on the ball. And again, this one really isn't even that difficult pass. He tries to take it first time, I believe, but he just doesn't get it to Partey. So De Bruyne nicks it. Harden gets the ball. He's running at us, and he slips it into De Bruyne, who takes a touch and just rolls it past Ramsdale, I think, through Holding's legs. But the point is, That's 3 times in the run-in that Ødegaard, listen, don't get me wrong, brilliant at Newcastle and sparked the comeback against Southampton to at least earn a point and scored at West Ham. So Martin Ødegaard has really contributed some great stuff in this run-in, and in that first half against Forest, I thought looked the most likely to make something happen. However, that's 3 times that your passing field's been cut out. And I think it's just mistakes. I don't think it's you shouldn't be doing it, or tactically there's something wrong, but it's just an error. But they've got to stop.
Absolutely. And also the thing is, when we build up in our 3-2-5, and that quickly became a 2v2, even a 3v2 for them at that stage. When you make a blind pass like that, you know they're set up in a 5-4-1. You know that that's what they're waiting for. You have to be so careful with your passing, and to make blind passes. And I know the team's built like that, sort of like pass and move. Players know where they've got to be. So I think part of it is due to the fact that over the last few weeks we haven't had the same players in the team, and that's led to mistakes, and we've been massively punished for every mistake, as I said at the start of the show. But I think he needs to think about that. He's been brilliant this season, so I'm not going to go in too hard on him.
No.
And he was bright on Saturday in the half spaces. They were blocking him trying to block us in the half spaces. He was still buzzing around, looking as though he's going to make something happen, and he was very good. But then ultimately, you give a goal away like that. I think if I said the same last week against Brighton. We scored the first goal against Brighton. We scored the first goal against Forest. I think we win that game.
Yeah.
And I think we've been able to control games away from home this year when we get the first goal. So to give them the first goal was something that we should have thought about, making sure we were careful. And if they got a goal, they had to work for it. And unfortunately, we just gave it to them.
I agree. Let's go into the roundup stats.
That was quick, mate.
No. Well, I don't want to dwell on it too much. Look, Ødegaard's made errors, but he's also been brilliant. And as I said, in the run, he's had his moments.
Shows flash by today, James. Roundup stats then. The closing stats for this week, James. Arsenal have spent 240 days top of the league this season, the longest of any team without winning a league title. I have to be honest and say that is a stat I don't like, but I have to share. Nope. Arsenal failed to score in back-to-back games on match days 36 and 37 for the first time since games on match days 36 and 37 last season. So that is an unfortunate coincidence. Last year we were going for top 4, and we lost at Tottenham and we lost at Newcastle, and that was the end of our top 4 hopes. This season, although it felt to me that the season was over after Manchester City when we lost up there, we've lost again on game weeks 36 and 37 to Brighton and to Forest, and that's ended.
I said you can't keep ending seasons like this, Arsenal.
And I think
you can't do it.
I think
it's 38 games. The fans are still turning up. You got to turn up, get points on the board. We had the opportunity to hit 90 points and at least make City work for it, at least get into the final week, at least make it respectable, and we haven't. And this is I'm really annoyed about it.
I know, I can see you are. I think the thing is, this is something we've got to really eradicate, and because next season, we've done it now in 2 straight seasons, and so there's a danger when you're doing it season after season that it becomes almost like a habit. So we've got to really sort of look at that and make sure that doesn't happen again next season. And another sad stat, well, they're all sad stats today. Arsenal have now failed to score in the last 3 games at the City Ground. That's 2 in the Cup and 1 in the League. 12 teams in the Premier League have picked up more points than Arsenal since the start of April, which just shows really how far we've sort of collapsed in the run-in.
That's an unbelievable stat.
Yeah. The XG Forest was only 0.66, Arsenal's 3rd worst after Manchester City and Leeds away. That's the worst XGs we've had. That was our 3rd worst in the season against Forest. We talked today about thinking of a need-up for backup for Bukayo Saka next season. I know you're going to be doing some stuff on AFTV, so I'll just let you know that Lionel Messi is available on a free transfer.
Oh, perfect. Well, there we go. There we go.
And I just want to end on a positive, James, after all that. Arsenal, who finished 5th last season, will be finishing 2nd, return to the Champions League next season. So the only place in London to see Champions League football next season is the Emirates. Spurs are sitting in 8th. Not too many people are talking about their capitulation at the end of the season. And Chelsea, after spending 650 million or whatever it was, now sitting 13th. So if you want to see Champions League football next season, come to the Emirates Stadium.
Yeah, and you know what? And that is reflective of the good work we've done, that we've secured 2nd place, and we secured it with games to go, and we're going to be in the Champions League, and it's another step forward for this team. Arsenal have progressed this year, and we have something to show for it. But
so,
yeah, go on.
The point I was going to make is, in your view, then, this season I think we've overachieved. We had a great chance to win the Premier League. I don't think chances like this come along too often, so it feels as though we've sort of like collapsed and thrown it away. I get that. But do you think, and I'm asking you a question now, do you think that this squad he has is a championship winning squad, or is it a top 4 squad? That's the question.
No, it's a very good top 4 squad.
Yeah.
It's a very good.
So
if this same squad goes out next season,
so have we
I expect
overachieved?
it to get Champions League.
You had your goals at the start of the season. Where did you put this Arsenal team coming?
Well, I said I wanted a lot more points. I think I said get as near to 80 points. I wanted a lot more goals, and I wanted us to be better in those away games. And they've ticked all those boxes. So they've done what I thought was a realistic expectation of this team. But I can't shake the way they've let it fall away. It does leave a sour taste on that. Yes, when you look at the bigger picture, but you can't ignore the recent results. You can't ignore the way it's gone from April till now. And I think the answer is, what even was the question? Have they overachieved?
No, I said, is this squad a potentially a title-winning squad, or is this squad a top 4 squad?
No, I think it's a top 4 squad.
Yeah.
But I think it should have got a lot closer to the title than it did as well.
I think the thing is we go again next season.
Yeah.
I think we learn the lessons from this season, and I think this summer, James, absolutely crucial now we get the players in key positions to go again next year in the Champions League.
It's going to be a busy summer. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us for the Tactical Insight Show. We really do appreciate it. We know after defeats and bad results, it's difficult trying to sort of go through the why and the how and what we take from it, especially when it's back to back and you start thinking, are the team even learning from this? But look, Arteta tried something different. It didn't quite work. Does that mean it won't ever work? No, I'm not sure. It doesn't mean. I'm not sure it means it will never work. So it'll be interesting to see what Arteta does for the Wolves game to end the season. Will it be Granit Xhaka's last game? Very possibly. And what will we do in the transfer window? Because links to Gundogan, Mount, Rice, not just links, by the way, very concrete reports are saying that Arsenal are trying to really get ahead with this midfield recruitment run that they are clearly going on this summer, and they're trying to do it quickly. So we'd love to know your thoughts. Go check out all the other videos on AFTV that are covering those transfer rumours and everything else around Arsenal this season and this week and going into Wolves as well. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Big thanks to Graham as always. You've been fantastic. We will see you very, very soon.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.